Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you very much for being here, Director Watt. I understand from your background you spent a little bit of time in New England, and I want to thank you very much in advance for rooting for the Patriots. Not that we'll need it, but on Sunday I appreciate that very much. Thank you very much.
I'm sorry I can't make that commitment to you.
I was hoping we'd start off on a good foot, Mr. Watt, but that's okay. Everybody that has been listening today, sir, understands that Fannie and Freddie are in conservatorship. And we, of course, understand that your organization is the, in fact, conservator. Now, I've also heard you say a couple times today, actually several times, that one of the roles that you're playing in this role, if I'm not mistaken, is to be sure, to the best of your ability, that Fannie and Freddie are safely and soundly managed, such that we keep the credit flowing to those who want to buy a home or are able to buy a home, and also to protect our hardworking taxpayers. Now, I'm going to be very honest with you, Mr. Watt. I have a little bit of a concern. If you look at Fannie, this is an organization that is connected to our federal government, that's been created by our federal government, that is responsible for $3.3 trillion of home mortgages, and they use our hardworking taxpayers to backstop those mortgages. I'm also concerned that Freddie Mac is also putting the U.S. taxpayers on the hook for an additional $2.2 trillion. Now, my other point I'd like to make, that is, if I'm not mistaken, in 2014, Fannie and Freddie together were responsible for holding 51% of all home mortgages in America. And that being the case, sir, would you agree with me that Fannie and Freddie are large financial institutions?
Absolutely, they are large financial institutions.
Good. Dodd-Frank, as I'm sure you know, Mr. Director, requires non-government large financial institutions to hold substantial amounts of capital in reserve in the event that something goes wrong. Now, I am not here advocating that those capital requirements for non-government entities be increased. However, don't you think it's appropriate, sir, that Fannie and Freddie, especially organizations of this size that are backstopped by the taxpayers, also ought to live by the same rules as that our non-government financial institutions when it comes to capital requirements?
I don't know that that's my decision to make, whether I agreed with it or not.
Well, you're the director.
You know, when I testified in the Senate, I said to one in response to a question, I don't have any personal opinions anymore. Well, every opinion I express now is an FHFA opinion, so I try not to express those personal opinions.
Well, I appreciate that very much, Mr. Watt, but with all due respect, you're in a position of a great authority. You're the regulator for the GSEs, and I would like to beg to differ with you a little bit, that your opinion is greatly appreciated. And what I'm trying to get across, if I may, is that we have two very large institutions that do not abide by the same capital requirements as other non-government institutions around this country. I might also add, if I may, that if you're looking at Fannie Mae, with $3.3 trillion in assets, and this has been said here before, they have roughly $10 billion in assets, but they're asking the taxpayers to backstop $3.3 trillion in loans. Now, if you're looking at Freddie Mac, you're looking at Freddie Mac, they have about $13 billion in assets, and they're backstopping $2.2 trillion. So I think we could both agree, I hope so, that these organizations are grossly undercapitalized and represent one heck of a risk to the taxpayers if something goes wrong. Would you agree with that, sir?
I have two responses to it, one of which I've already given, which is I didn't set up the preferred stock purchase agreement. I wasn't even there when it was created, so I'm living under that. I can't change it without. But the second response is you all can change that. Everything that you just talked about, you can change by doing GSE reform.
Mr. Watt, everybody wants a healthy economy. And the taxpayers in our district in Maine, who are some of the hardest working, most honest people you could ever meet, they want to make sure they have a government that works for them and not against them. And I happen to believe that accountability in all stages of government, all levels of government, are a good thing. And I'm very concerned about these large institutions that are highly leveraged with very little capital that's requiring the taxpayers to backstop them. When we have interest rates at historic lows, with a rise in interest rates that could cause a problem with the housing market and also our economy, wouldn't you agree that it makes sense to take a look at these institutions?
Time of the gentleman has expired. A brief answer, please.
I think I've already answered your question to the best of my ability to do it, Representative.
Thank you very much, sir.
That was brief.